This is Daim Shabazz of the Chess Drum. This is the fifth drum beat segment. It's June the 7th, 2012. And we have a number of stories, but the main story is the World Championship match, which ended about a week ago, May 30th, with Viswanathan Anand successfully defending his title against Boris Gelfand of Israel. There's a nice picture of him receiving a champion's wreath. And that score was 8.5 to 7.5, with the first 12 games of the match being knotted at 6 to 6, with each player scoring a win, and the tie breaks ending with Anand scoring 1 win and 3 draws, game number 2 of the tie breaks being the margin of victory for Anand. So let's go to the coverage for the match, as there are a number of different resources for the match, including the official site. As you can see here, this was the closing ceremony, and we may listen to a little bit of the clip from the closing ceremony. But let's go to some of the coverage. This was a piece that I did on the last day of the tie breaks, with Anand retaining the crown. A very nice picture of Anand receiving the champion's wreath from the FIDE president, and all of the games of the tie breaks. The first game was drawn. As you can see, the final position here. That game, a game that was very exciting. It exploded. There were pieces flying all over the place, but it petered out to a draw. The second game was a game that Anand came out on top because of his preparation. There was a comment made by Gadakomsky after the match, who talked about how much preparation was involved in this match, and he said it in a way that showed some frustration, because many of the games of this match ended in draws, and these draws were less than 30 moves. So there has been a lot of talk about the role that preparation plays in these matches and what can be done to prevent the short draws that were occurring in this match. That being said, these games were very, very tense and hard fought, but it is my opinion that the tension may have been released prematurely in a number of the games. So that is something that a lot of the chess world was talking about, some being a lot more dogmatic than others. But again, game 2 was the margin of victory for Anand. Very well played game. As you can see, all of the games, if you look at the positions, all of them end in rook and pawn ending. So these games were very close and very, I guess you can say, fiercely contested. And here's the final position of game 4, with being a completely drawn ending. That also was a very exciting game coming out of the Rosarimo. Here you have the scoreboard. As you can see, the number of draws here, and you can see the victories, with Anand coming out on top +1. There were videos coming out of India where Anand was greeted. He got a hero's welcome in coming back to India, where he was also given a bonus by the government, which amounted to another $360,000 US. So this was a very fruitful and well-deserved victory for Anand, and he has defended his world championship 3 times in classical matches. He beat Vladimir Kramnik in 2008, Veselin Topalov in 2010, and now Boris Gelfand in 2012. So his next opponent coming out of the candidates match will probably be someone from the newer generation or the rising generation, and that will certainly be a tough encounter for him. I included in my coverage the videos from Daniel King. He gave a daily analysis on the games, and it was very insightful and very straightforward in his analysis. So that was something that we derived a lot of benefit from. There are also videos that come from the official site, so you can go back and look at some of those games, specifically the tie breaks here, which were all covered in this segment. You have the closing ceremonies, and also this was the video that I had mentioned earlier about him receiving a hero's welcome. So all of those are available here at the Chess Drum, as well as a number of other sites. This was the closing ceremonies, and we'll take a look at Viswanathan Anand actually going up to give some words on the match.
Сейчас я попрошу подняться на сцену чемпиона мира Вишванатана Ананда.
Viswanathan Anand, the world champion of chess, is now asked to take the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to have played this event here in Moscow, the World Championship, and I'd like to thank a few people. First of all, I'd like to thank the sponsors, Mr. Filatov and Mr. Timoshenko. I'd like to thank the Russian Chess Federation, the Tretyakov Gallery, and everyone responsible for the superb organization. Of course, I'd like to thank FIDE for their supervision. It was a very difficult and long struggle, but I would like to especially say that my opponent would always come to the board, write something on a score sheet, then come backstage, greet me warmly, and then we would come and play the game. So even though it was a tough struggle, I think my opponent Boris Gelfand contributed a lot, that it was played in the right spirit.
Дамы и господа, разрешите мне выразить чувство счастья, которое связано с тем, что мне пришлось играть этот матч здесь, в Москве. Я хотел бы поблагодарить всех организаторов матча. Это Российскую шахматную федерацию, спонсоров господина Филатова и господина Тимченко. Хотел бы поблагодарить руководство Третьяковской галереи за прекрасную организацию матча. Хотел бы поблагодарить и ФИДЕ за осуществленный надзор за проведением матча. Нужно сказать, что матч был длительным и очень тяжелым. Хочу отметить одно, что мой оппонент Борис Гельфанд каждый раз подходил к шахматной доске с чувством хорошей заряженности, подготовленности, и вместе с тем создавалось светлое ощущение того, что мы сыграли одну игру и также будем играть, как и должны настоящие спортсмены, играть следующую игру. Этот процесс будет продолжаться.
I think his achievements in this cycle have already inspired a lot of attention for chess in Israel, and I just want to wish him all the very best.
Я думаю, что проведенный шахматный цикл привел к возрастанию интереса шахмата в Израиле. Я также думаю, что и этот процесс будет продолжаться.
I also want to say it has been wonderful to play in front of such an appreciative audience.
Хотелось бы особенно отметить, что было весьма приятно играть в такой дружественной атмосфере зрителей.
And today we just returned from the pleasure of an audience with the Russian president.
А сейчас мы только что вернулись от российского президента, который также нам предоставил аудиенцию.
He had actually followed, he discussed the match a little bit with us, and that was very enjoyable.
Он, оказывается, следил с интересом за матчем и нашел его очень интересным.
And I'd also like to thank my wife and my team here for their support. I think it would have been difficult to go through such a difficult match without their help.
Хотел бы поблагодарить свою супругу и всю нашу делегацию, которая меня поддерживала. Я думаю, что в проведении и участии в таком матче мне пришлось бы очень тяжело без их поддержки.
I will go back with a lot of pleasant memories of this match, and I think Moscow was a fantastic venue for it. So thank you all again.
Я вернусь из вашего фантастического города Москва с самыми лучшими воспоминаниями об этом матче. Большое вам спасибо.
Okay, a very nice speech by Anand, very diplomatic. He's become very seasoned at giving these speeches. So let's look at some of the reactions from the match. This was a piece done by Chess Vibes, which covered the aftermath of the match, and there were comments, a lot of comments on Twitter about the match and the reaction. There was a rather large outcry in terms of the number of draws, and there was some disappointment. But I think if we look at this a bit objectively, we have to understand that this is certainly a new era of chess, where now you have the engines and you have all kinds of resources that really make playing in matches almost an art form. And the use of human intelligence and also with computers makes it a lot more difficult to gain advantages against an opponent. So let's look at some of the comments. There was criticism that came from many quarters, including Garry Kasparov, which the comments rankled Anand, who directly addressed these comments. But let's look at some of the other comments before we get to Kasparov. Judith Pogar said, this was on Twitter, what a nail-biting tiebreak at the World Championship. I certainly enjoyed every moment of the playoff. Jan Nepomaniachi gives congratulations to Viswanathan Anand. He was actually giving commentary during the match as well. And Gadakomsky, whose comments I thought were rather biting, where he talked about the role of preparation. His comment is quoted, looking at the last few World Championship matches, it makes me sad that chess at present is 80% preparation and only 20% is about the game. It's time to start looking at one of Fischer's greatest inventions, Fischer Random Chess. No more teams of helpers or even draws, pure chess. Since the demise of the Mainz events, perhaps FIDE should consider at least trying to make Fischer Random startup events and ratings. Because Fischer Random Chess, in my humble opinion, is the future. Mark my words. So those were some very pointed comments coming from Kamsky about the nature of matches as of late. So some very interesting comments, and you can check out the rest of the comments on Chess Vibes. Here's a story out of Times of India where Anand also is addressing the comments of Garry Kasparov, who made some critical comments saying that Anand lacked motivation. Anand states that this is because Garry Kasparov is longing for the attention that he got when he was actually active in professional chess. And Anand states that Kasparov, quote unquote, regrets his retirement from the game. So that's kind of a response to Kasparov's comments that were, I would say they struck a nerve with Anand, and he's not easily rankled. 2 years ago, or actually more than 2 years ago, Kasparov was cited in a chess-based article, and I had posted a brief here at the Chess Drum that Anand's reign would be over soon. And his quote was that Vishy is a brilliant player, but it is very difficult to compete at 40. He is up against people half his age. I would be surprised if he can go on any longer. He can fight against anyone but time. Anand made the comment that certainly he is of that age, but Boris Gelfand is even older. So there are lots of arguments and counter arguments that can be made about age and about performance. And we know that Victor Korchnoi is playing at a high level well into his, I believe he's in his 80s now. Lastly is another article or another I guess you can say it was an article accompanied with a video where Anand hit back at his critics.
Well, he's been king of the world, at least the world of chess, for more than 2 decades now, and with an incredible 5 world titles under his belt, Viswanathan Anand is undoubtedly one of India's best sportspersons, and in fact, many would argue perhaps India's best sportsperson ever. We're happy to have him joining us on Left, Right and Centre, straight from Moscow, 2 days after his incredible 5th world title. Viswanathan Anand, it's a great pleasure to talk to you. Congratulations for this incredible win. I'll begin by asking you the predictable question, and it's a cliche that I think fits in very well here. Whether it's sunk in, has it finally sunk in about what you've achieved?
Thank you very much. Well, it's beginning to, but basically I haven't been able to sleep the last couple of nights, so we're still extremely wound up, but slowly life is getting back to normal. Yes, it is beginning to sink in because I understand that I've defended my title, and slowly I'm starting to enjoy myself again.
You know, at one point during this tournament, Garry Kasparov, who you once described as your nemesis, he went on to say quite a few things. He said that, you can fight against anyone, but you can't fight against time. He said you lacked motivation and a hunger for victory. Now, obviously, you proved him wrong by going ahead and winning the title. So does that give you a particular satisfaction that you were able to prove your nemesis wrong?
Yes, I think the main thing, it wasn't only him. I mean, there were a lot of people parroting what he was saying. And I think this is the first time I've played a match where so many people seem to have negative opinions about my play. And the thing is, I don't think I lacked motivation. I think you have to give full credit to my opponent, Gelfand. He never let me get the kind of play that I like, and that is very frustrating because you like to play in a certain way, but Gelfand neutralized almost everything I did, and so I had to cope with that. But it was very satisfying, when the ambience around you is so negative. I mean, in the press conference, they more or less keep on repeating what people like Kasparov said. It's no secret that I've had difficulty in a couple of tournaments, and that my confidence therefore suffers a little bit. But I think under those circumstances, if you can hang in there and win like this, then it's all the more satisfying. And on the final day, the tie-break day, I actually managed to, the first game itself, I had the feeling that the tide was turning. Because for the first time with black, I managed to get a very exciting position and managed to almost beat him. So then I felt the tide was turning, but still the match was very intense. It went back and forth in game 3 and 4 of the tie-break as well. He had very good chances. So I think it's much harder like this, and definitely that's much more satisfaction. I mean, he keeps talking about my age, but I could just as well say that Boris is even slightly older.
Well, that was a very sharp response to Kasparov's comments about Anand's performance in the World Championship match. So the very, very interesting discussions that have ensued about the match, and perhaps some changes that will be made in the future in terms of championship matches, or even if there will be a different format. We have come through the full iteration, and this cycle has borne itself out, and I think now we're going to move into another phase of the World Championship matches. So let's look at some of the other websites. As you can see, some of the latest stories. The women's Rapid and Blitz tournament ended with Stefanova winning the Rapid and Guanina winning the Blitz tournament. Those very exciting videos that you can look at here at ChessBase. So those were the I guess the latest in terms of some tournament play. Then you had the Full English Breakfast with issue number 22. And they talked quite a bit about the World Championship, including ideas about how to make the games a bit more exciting. One of the things that was brought out in this half-hour segment was this suggestion of how to reduce the number of draws. Macaulay Peterson had made a comment about that he was referring to Frederick Friedel of ChessBase's suggestion that draw offers, if given during a game, should be valid for 5 moves, meaning that your opponent can consider the draw offer for 5 to 10 moves before they accept it. So if you give a draw offer, this opponent can make a series of moves, and even if that opponent gets in trouble, they can say, okay, I accept your draw offer. Very interesting idea, which was debated it was a lively debate on Full English Breakfast, and I think it's a very worthwhile discussion to have. So you may want to check that out. That's thefeb.com, and you can listen to the full segment there at the Full English Breakfast. The live chess ratings, looking at the latest tally, you have Carlsen, who's been unmoved at 28.35. Some of the most significant changes is Nakamura, after the U.S. Championship, gained about 8 points. Anand, as a result of the World Championship match, lost about 11 points, and thereby Gelfand gaining the same amount of points. So Nakamura is now at number 5 in the world at 27.82, and he's less than 2 points behind Timur Rajabov of Azerbaijan for the 4th spot. So very interesting results on the eve of the Tao Memorial, which actually starts today. In fact, if I could just pull up the announcement, this is on Twik. They give you the field. As you can see, Carlsen, Aronian, Kramnik, Rajabov, Nakamura, Caruana. So you have the top 5 players in the world are actually in that field. So that should be a very interesting tournament. We'll actually go to Twitter now. So if we look at the latest tweets, I've got 65 new tweets. So we'll go back and we'll check on the new ones. TSF vetoes 7 federations from having principals at the Istanbul Chess Olympiad. So you can get the full story there, and you can read the statement, the full statement, and it's also covered on ChessDom, and it discusses the quote-unquote charges against the 7 federations, or the sanctions against the 7 federations. Let's go back up and look at the 65 new tweets to see what has come across the chess Twitter sphere. Here, Macaulay Peterson is talking about the match going to St. Louis tomorrow for the Karpov-Serowan duel. Live coverage starts Sunday on uschesschamps.com. Macaulay Peterson did the video productions for the U.S. Championship. Very well done, and that should be a very entertaining and exciting match. They'll play Rapid and Blitz, I believe, and looking forward to seeing that battle play out. So that's Twitter. And to end this segment, we will look at the game of the week. There are actually 2 games. And these games are actually from the Women's World Rapid Championship. And I have 2 games. The first game is between Nona Gaprindishvili and Elizabeth Patz of Germany. Gaprindishvili is the former women's champion and definitely a legend in women's chess. And we'll focus on that game in particular. So let's run through that game very quickly. It was a very exciting game. So it starts out as a kind of a modern, but then it goes into a G3 King's Indian. Gaprindishvili is playing white. Patz is active on the queen side, trying to expand. And the position never becomes closed. It's always that tension that is building up in the position, where you have Black trying to break through on the flanks, and White trying to counter in the center. The battle still continues. Now there's a battle where now Black is trying to attack on the king side. White seems to be defending. Now we enter an endgame. White wins a pawn. Now goes back over to the queen side. Wins another pawn. Now there's kind of a change in the position. White has won a couple of pawns while also creating pass pawns, 4 pass pawns. Black's trump is the c pawn, which is now on c4, but of course that pawn is going nowhere. This was actually the first round of the Rapid Championship, and Gapardishvili was a surprise entry in this tournament, and she won her first game. Unfortunately, she would only score 2 points out of 11 in the Rapids, but her presence was very much appreciated. She ends this game very nicely with a mate. As you can see here, knight c7 mate. So a very nice ending for the former world champion, and it's good to see her still playing chess and still being very, very active. Before we end the segment, I would like to just show you a couple of stories that were done for the chess drum. I have an update on the Young Lions, which are 3 young masters out of the New York area: Justice Williams, James Black, and Josh Colas. All of them were virtually the same ratings, and they all have their tournaments coming up in the summer. So it will be good to see what progress that they're making in terms of their games. I actually posted one of my games from a tournament last weekend, so if you want to take a look at this, I think it's a very interesting game out of an English. We go into kind of a classic position. I employ the hedgehog, then the game gets very tactical, and I ended up winning in a time scramble. It turns out that my opponent could have established a fortress, and it would have been very difficult for me to win that game. One of the stories that I want to point out is the story of my high school coach, Thomas Feinberg, who passed away May 27th at age 89, and he was a pioneer. Pioneer may not be the right word, but he was a tireless organizer in chess, and really helped me to gain an appreciation and passion for the game. And there was a story that I posted about my reflections on Tom Feinberg. You see a picture of me holding the city championship plaque in Chicago, where he was the coach of the team, and also some other information about Tom Feinberg and another one of his former players, James Fagan. And so it makes for an interesting story for people who've dedicated their entire lives to chess. And I just wanted to take that time to pay homage and to certainly thank my coach, Tom Feinberg, for doing all that he has done for chess. He'll be greatly missed, and hopefully his legacy will be carried on, and his passion will be carried on through more tournaments and more chess activism. I hope you enjoyed this segment, and hopefully there will be future segments, and we will cover some of the tournament activity this summer. And if you have any suggestions, if you have any games, if you have any news, if you have any sites, any Twitter accounts to follow, please give me a message. Send me a message on Facebook or message through Twitter, or you can email me at webmaster@thechessdrum.net, and hopefully we'll be able to add those comments and answer any questions that you may have. This is Daim Shabazz of the Chess Drum, and as always, keep the beat going. Thank you.